The global oil story is entering a dangerous new phase. What began as disruption in the Strait of Hormuz, it is now spreading into a much bigger crisis. Now, this narrow stretch of water, it has long been the world's most important oil artery. With a huge portion of global crude oil, it passes through it every single day. But rising tension linked to Iran, well, it has put this route under a lot of pressure. And when Hormuz is affected, the entire global energy it starts to feel the strain almost immediately. Well, to manage the risk, Saudi Arabia quickly activated a backup plan. Instead of relying only on Hormuz, it began rerouting crude exports through the Red Sea using its major port at Yanbu. This particular route, it allows the oil to bypass Hormuz entirely, giving Saudi Arabia a temporary safety net and helping stabilize the supply for the global market, specifically for countries in Asia that depend heavily on the Middle Eastern oil. But now that backup route is facing its own threat. Attention has shifted to the Bab al-Mandab Strait, basically a narrow but extremely important passage connecting the Red Sea to the Gulf of Aden, often referred to as Gate of Tears. Well, this choke point carries a large portion of oil shipment heading towards Asia and other parts of the world. Well, if this route is disrupted, then the alternative path that Saudi Arabia is relying on, it could become ineffective. And this is where the whole situation becomes even more serious. The Houthi movement, it operates close to this region, and with rising tension, there are growing concerns that shipping lanes in and around Bab al-Mandab Strait, it could come under threat. Even the possibility of attacks on tankers, boats, or nearby infrastructure, it is enough to create uncertainty in global market. Now, in such a situation, it is not just an actual disruption that matters. The fear of disruption alone can drive prices up and slow down the shipment. In fact, the implication of this significant. If both Hormuz and Bab al-Mandab Strait faces instability at the same time, then what happened to the global shipping supply chain? Well, it will be squeezed, and that too from two directions. And this would reduce the flow of oil into international markets, tighten supply, and increase the competition among countries trying to secure energy resources. In the meantime, for Asia, the impact could be particularly severe. Why? Because many major economies in the region rely heavily on oil transported through these routes. So any disruption over here, it could really mean higher import costs, rising fuel prices, and increased economic pressure. Industries dependent on energy could face higher operating costs, and consumers, of course, they would see a direct impact in the form of more expensive fuel and goods. This whole situation is also highlighting a larger structural issue. The global oil system depends heavily on a few narrow choke points. When these routes are stable, supply flows smoothly. But when tensions rise in these regions, the entire system becomes vulnerable. With Hormuz already under pressure and Bab al-Mandab Strait now at risk, the margin for stability is shrinking. Analysts are warning that the market could soon move from a tight supply situation to a far more unstable one. And that means sharper price spike. In fact, sudden supply disruption and increased volatility across the global energy market. Even small incidents on these choke points could trigger large reaction worldwide. And yes, at its core, this is not just an energy story. It's about geography, it's about strategy, it's about control. It's about how a few narrow waterway holds the power to influence the global economies. And as tension continue to rise, the world is definitely left watching closely, knowingly that any disruption in the Gate of Tears, it could have consequences far beyond the region.